So today we're all about automation, and we've got 21 different automation techniques, things that we can show you that will save a lot of time if you are trying to optimize your information management processes. So we'll talk about how to optimize the creation of those mundane, maybe sometimes tedious documentation that's required, the resources, like, for example, the EIR for the exchange information requirements from the owner's perspective, the appointing party, and then right the way through for your responses. A lot of teams that are creating BIM execution plans have to do many of these, but they have to be tailored to each and every project. So we'll talk about how to automate that side of things, and even the automation of all of the things that are required to meet an ISO 19650 audit. Hey, Akos, how's it going?
Hey, doing great. I had a bunch of technical difficulties, so this is going to be a great one. I'm very excited.
Cool. And I think that we're seeing more and more people join us, so we'll wait a couple of minutes and before we get started. But you've got there on the screen a couple of ways to get in touch with us. My LinkedIn on the QR code, Akosh's LinkedIn on the QR code, and then our email addresses, so you can get in touch with us directly. If it's something that you see and you have a question, then ping us. We love questions. We love to get involved and understand more about the challenges that you're facing and how we can add technology to solve that. Sometimes it's more than just technology that we need, but hopefully we can help in some of those ways. That we work with lots of teams around the world, and it's always good to chat with teams that are facing some of these challenges that we faced actually when we were Akos was an architect. I'm a civil engineer by trade, and my background in engineering, but did a lot of construction, contracting work, and yeah, really understand the challenges in our industry, which are many and they are broad. So hopefully some of the automation that we'll go through today will help. And a bunch of resources.
Messages. Oh, sorry about that, but I see already some messages in the chat. Chris is saying that he only would be available for the first 30 minutes. So I think we have to make sure that we compress as much as possible into that first 30 minutes and then probably run over a little bit. And since there is an open chat, please let us know where you are calling in from, if we can use that word in 2025 now. So where are you from? Where are you listening or watching us now? That's always beautiful to see.
Absolutely. So let's get started then. I'll say hi, I'm Clive.
This is Akos.
And today we'll look at how we can automate everything from creating a BIM execution plan to automating as much as we can from an auditing perspective for the ISO 19650 workflows. And this will encompass quite a lot. So every type of resource, every type of document, we'll show you how to click once and remove all that tedious work and get all of the database-driven fields in a document, and automation in publishing. Some really cool stuff when you can have management of multiple of these resources all in the same place and have permissions on them, so that we don't have to have disparate requirements everywhere. Combining that with automation in creating your execution responsibility, so your exchange information requirements, who has to do what at what point in time, what is the information that's important, what are the rules that will check automatically in the models that are delivered, what milestone, what's the sequence of work, how can we automate that. And we'll also share a great checklist that you can use to make sure that you're following all the steps of ISO 19650 and getting compliance there. And we'll also talk about automation of information delivery specifications, the ability to talk in a plain language and communicate using a grid of requirements, but also export a machine readable form so that you can use that in many other tools. But we'll also look at the checking and the autonomous checking inside of models, and the automation that is present inside of File Manager for automating file names, following ISO 19650 conventions, automating the folder structure and the placement of files and the filtering of files and the responsibilities and the assignments and the approvals and the e-signatures and everything all in the same place as well. So quite a lot of automation, and automation when it comes to our ISO 19650 to-do lists as well. In the last webinar, we shared a preview of all of these tasks that you would generally have to do, and why they're important. But we'll look at how all of these, we've done a lot of the hard work of understanding the standards and boiling them down to practical steps that are useful for your projects, and making sure that you can become compliant with all of these steps, but not just compliant, but also getting a practical use and real value on your projects so that you can get efficiencies from these as well. So to the main agenda, we're going to try and do this very quickly, as Akos said there. We've got 21 points that start with one click to create a resource, like, for example, the BIM execution plan response, right the way through to automation in reporting, automation in connecting to building smart data dictionaries, the IDS, the information delivery specification, model checking, file naming, and also the automated when it comes to getting your organization approved for using ISO 19650 in your workflows in a compliant way and getting certified. Should we take a look at these, Akos?
Let's go into details. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. So the first one is a single click to create a document. And you think, well, why is that important? Because we create lots of these resources, and a lot of the time it might be quite time consuming to create them. So when we're creating a BIM execution plan, we have to go and find where we had the last template. We have to understand what's different on this project. Maybe we've got some find and replace going on, and a whole bunch of things that can be a little bit error prone, but it's also something that takes a bit of time. So we've optimized this to really make it a lot more consistent across all of your projects, and in a single click. So if I go into a project inside of Planoly and into the docs module, we now make it a single click to create this resource, and this resource is loaded with what we call smart fields, which are automatically completed based on the database fields. And it could be a BIM execution plan, it could be anything. It could be your training plan. It could be your understanding of what handover is and how you go about defining COBie requirements. It could be how you mobilize on your project. Any of these resources, understanding risk registers, etc. And if you have RACI charts or meeting minutes or how-to guides, anything that's in your library can be created with just a single click. And by clicking, it will create you and add you this document that you can then manage and monitor on your project. If you want to complement that with other parts of other documents, maybe you've got something in your training plan that you would like to include, and you can either drag a full category of content into your project, or you can say, I want to actually just drag this one section into my project and add it to a certain place. So by doing that, by dragging and dropping, what we're doing is using our standards and using our templates and combining all of that knowledge into something that then can be used on your project that's project specific, because we have these fields, these what we call smart fields that are automatically completed, and they are completed across multiple documents as well. So we'll come to that, but the concept is that we can save a lot of time by having templates that are a single click to create your resources that are required on your projects. Any comments, Akos, about that part?
Lots of questions actually. This one also allows that that you can make sure that the teams are always starting from greatest and latest, right? So you don't really have to look for documents stored maybe on different online data storages or offline computers. It is always the most up-to-date document that you can start from, or template. And these templates are not necessarily only coming from Planoly. So we have a great amount of starting points, but the best practice is to take whatever you feel meaningful and useful and helpful for your purposes, and then digest them and adjust them to your needs, and create your own templates that you are going to refine from project to project.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, consistency and making it faster to get there. We talked about that drag and drop for being able to add from our templates. So if we wanting to drag from a template, that's great. But we can also add a entirely new document, and that could be a Word document. So here we use unstructured data to create structured data, or more structured data. And that might be something, let me go and grab one and find a document that I can bring in. One sec while I find one.
So many teams, of course, already have some starting points, some documents that they would like to use in Planoly, and getting to this structured state. So Clive just showed us how the entire document falls into smaller and more manageable pieces. And in order to get to that stage, you can start using your existing documentation. And as you see, it is going to be structured the same way.
Yep. So this concept here is that we can take a Word document and then use it to create these building blocks, and then complement it with what we saw before, which were the smart fields. So we can add in these details and say, you know, this is, for example, the start date, let's say, as a field. And that start date would be a field that can be completed across all documents. So if I'd have filled this in already, let's go back to that BIM execution plan, go to the project information and hit the start date. Let's add a start date. Now that I've completed that start date, it's actually completed across all of these documents and all of these different places that smart field has been used. So it's really powerful to get to an automation, but this was actually automating the creation of this document from the Word document, and then using these building blocks, these containers of information, these requirements maybe, and being able to then indent them, move them around, and it all automatically is updating our structure and our numbering convention without us having to think about updating a table of contents and managing that separately. So
one of our users were saying that actually getting from a generic template with using smart fields and getting to a project-specific agreement is what we are doing here, and couldn't be easier than this. So grabbing your template, putting the smart fields in the template as placeholders, and as you start using them on an actual project, it automatically is creating the project-specific documentation for you.
Yep, exactly. And when we think about managing these as resources, as documents, we also see a lot of use of AI in those processes. So lots of errors that we can fix using AI. As an example, I am an engineer and my spelling is really poor. So if I look at something like, let's take why we use BIM. Actually, let's use I want to get something that's got a bit more content in. Maybe this one's a good one. Successful information management. So inside of here, I'm an engineer, so I make mistakes all the time. I'm going to add some just as if, oh, I don't want to click that. I add some as if that's how I spell. Unfortunately, sometimes that is how I spell. But we can use the automatic AI updates to be able to make those corrections. So in here, if I use the correct, it then automatically takes that, replaces the content, and if I save it now, we'll see an example of both of these and with the updates as well. So you can see how the automation here, it doesn't mean that I have to go through a spell check and then correct the grammar and punctuation, etc. It's all as one. AI is helping us do a lot of things now, but spotting things like errors in the grammar and punctuation and also sentence structure, all of that is at one click of a button now. We also have AI use if we wanted to create content. So let's say if I like the one by saying, let me roll up all of our sections, and then somewhere here, I'm going to add a section called risks, project risks. And the concept here is that now it understands the context, understands that it's a BIM execution plan, understands who's part of this project and also the structure. And so if I don't have an idea of how to start this project risks section, I can simply ask AI to write my section, and that will give you a starting point for something that you can then refine. And that really helps us get off the mark, and it means that we don't have to do all of this without any ideas, and it gives us a good starting point. So it talks about risks, it talks about mitigation strategies, the different stakeholders and what their responsibility might be in risk, and it's something that we can really start to then refine after in our own words.
This AI is trained on acing. However, you can go to planoly.com and just create a free account, and I would encourage you to give it a try because you have access to this AI functionality. And I was testing it. I'm a runner, and I was asking it to put together a marathon plan for me, and it was pretty good. Not only how I have to train, but also the social aspect and all those kind of things. And so, yeah, give it a try with your free access as well.
Love it. So it can automate the updating, and also we saw there the auto versioning that occurs, so we can see what's happened and who worked on it and what the latest changes were, so we can really avoid the confusion of what happens in that workflow usually. We also like to style things quickly, so if we have a brand and we want to remain consistent across our brand strategy, there's a lot of different ways that we can do that in a like more automated way, rather than it being something that you have to try and highlight a lot of text and update and change styles across multiple documents. So in order to do that, let's just open a couple of these sections and share that setting at the top. If we want to just change quickly the size of the text and make it a lot larger, for example, we can change that not just across this document, but also all documents that are here. And this update will change everything that you haven't specifically changed yourself away from the default styles. So yeah, really quick to be able to make those updates and changes and texts and changes to the styles and colors and everything in your project all at the one point. Obviously, you can change all of these styles and add different content. You can even add your own, not on a free plan. You can even add, I'm actually on a free account just so that you can see the use that you can get also without any subscription at all. So you can come in and do these things. But you can add your own styles, even your own fonts, if you are on a paid plan. So very quick to maintain that across all of your documents without having to manage it separately, and you can have that centralized and manage it in one place. We talked about pieces of a document and AI updating and generating, but also it's trained on 1 billion data points in AEC, which is specifically focused on this information management goal. And if you want to, you can create even a complete document as a starting point. That's as simple as coming in, adding a document, and I've reached my limit here. Let me delete this one and then come back to this one. And this would be just start with AI, and that would then create your document. So you can give it a name, and literally from that document name, it will generate, you can describe what you want in your document, and then obviously you will have to then review and finalize that output. Really quick, really simple to get what you need as a starting point, and then obviously a lot of refinement in your project as well.
Yeah, before jumping into the next one, let me just pause here, and we showed a couple of awesome features, I believe, but one thing that I realized during a couple of 15 years or so when I was creating execution plans, that in many cases execution plans were not read at all. They were not used, so of course they were not followed. What do you think? How does this approach is different from previous approaches, and how can we ensure that actually execution plans or other documents, agreements are going to be read and agreed upon and followed later on?
I think that's a crazy good point. We actually thought that this was just a problem for maybe the BIM execution plans that we used to write as project management teams. We would create a BIM execution plan, and then actually it would never get read. It would be too long for people, too difficult to read, and maybe, you know, in a PDF form, nobody really had the energy to get through it and to understand it. So what we tried to do was make it more inviting as a structured set of data, online, make it easier to see parts of it that you want to share a link to specifically to as part of a document, for example. Have them broken down into tabs that you can have access to or not have access to, so you only give the right amount of data to the right people. But also the accountability piece was completely missing from BIM execution plans. So we added this ability to add specifically saying, okay, Akos is responsible for this and this. He is going to then complete these. I can then assign these to him and go through an approval process with him. What we realized was it's not just BIM execution plans. It's actually every single type of resource or document in our AEC industry. We tend to create these as Word documents or offline. We then create a PDF from it. We share that on an email, and we expect people to read it. We expect people to comment on it. We expect their feedback. And then we expect ourselves to then collect all of their feedback and incorporate that feedback into the main workflow, and then somehow get somebody's signature, somebody's agreement to it. And what we found, what we were solving for BIM execution plans was the same for every single type of construction document. So whether it's a construction contract, whether it's a scope of work or a brief or something, in exchange information requirements, all of those are concepts that suffer the same challenges. And we really saw that breaking it down into smaller pieces that could be managed on their own, that could be assigned and accountable to certain teams, that are tracked with all of their versions and history and understood in that specific chunk of the data, and also can go through an approval process. That whole process was massive, was really, really important. And part of that was actually to get people's feedback as well. So inside of our successful information management, maybe there are some parts of this that actually I don't agree with. Maybe I assigned this to Akos. Akos, you had shared it, so now it was available for everyone to comment on. And what happens if I don't agree? Actually, Akos, I'm just going to move myself into another team so that my commenting color is different from yours. So now we're in two different teams, and make mine even more like a orange color, make yours a blue color. So what I've just done is given us two different teams and two different colors. Now in the document, as we go through this review process, and maybe I don't agree with something or I agree with something and I want to change something, now I can highlight pieces of the text, add a comment. My comment is this. And as I add that comment, you can start seeing these are added, and I can hear Akos typing away in the background. So Akos is adding his comments as well. So when Akos adds his thoughts to this document, I'll start to see them, and I can then reply to them and have a conversation with him, and we can go through this process and have that review structure. So here, Akos, there's a new comment. He says, okay, I can see where that is. So I can see where all of these comments are. and start to go through the resolving of these comments. So, okay, that's great. And I can then resolve these comments, and they go through to the resolve. They come off of my view here, but I can go back and see all of these, along with all of the different status changes as well as we go through this process. So it's really powerful to understand Akos, your point there was, what is this? How is this different? And I think that the process of having multiple documents in the same place, having permissions on them. So if I wanted to, I could restrict the permissions just to have only our teams have access to this document if I wanted to. Having the ability to assign specific sections, being able to go through a review and approval process, and actually getting to a final outcome, along with the automation in creating and filling it in from a database to get to a published and final outcome, is really, really powerful. And we've seen that be something that's not just for BIM execution plans, but every single type of document.
And users are reporting, so we have some beautiful case studies about 80% increase in efficiency, which I believe time is really important. So that's how much faster they can create these agreements. But what is maybe even more important is that these are true agreements, real agreements, and all the stakeholders all around the table, they have a choice with the built-in approval workflow to give feedback on time, and then being incorporated into the final agreement.
Yeah, I think when we say we create a contract agreement, in traditional sense, we're calling it a contract agreement, but it's actually not very likely that teams are really truly understanding what's in it and agreeing to it. So we're really focused on creating collaborative contract agreements. That's what this workflow is enabling. Cool. And then once you've created all of this, we still do need to put it into some kind of a contract. So that's something that we want to be able to do in a PDF form. And again, sometimes this can be quite tedious and time consuming to create these. Well, inside of Planoly, we have made it so that you can just use what's there and export a document, and that document can automate the cover page, have some details about the document, maybe an index of which documents are in here. So if we want the BIM execution plan, and maybe we only want to filter the published content for this, and maybe we want to bring in the grid of responsibilities and the scope. When we've done that, we actually haven't done that yet. But in clicking these, and maybe we want a Teams page that shows all of the different teams on our project. So really quickly, we're creating this, and even an index of all of that content. We can include maybe the comments and markup if we wanted to. So if we wanted to see the comments, we could see that in here as well. And if I hit save and then create this as a BEP version, oh, actually, we don't even need to version it. It will automatically do that as well. So once it's created this, we can see all the versions as well. So show all versions. This is something that Akos had just created. But this, once it's created, it will create us a nice formatted with all of our cover page and contents and everything in our project, and all of the comments that we've marked on here as well. We can do a whole bunch of things with this, but yeah, it's all automated. The whole structure of this is automated for us as well. So once we have an export of this, what might we want to do with that export? We might want to distribute it. Yeah. So would that be another thing that would be good to automate? I know that every time when I was creating reports, and it would be just tedious to create the content of reports, and let alone then think, oh, I've got to distribute it, I've got to send it to these people. Well, how good would it be if we could do this on an automated basis? Well, inside of Planoly, once you've created that export, we can then just simply go to this the version, and then turn on the auto versions and enable it to send every Monday morning at a specific time, and add a certain set of people to the automation, send them a list, send them a message about that, hit save, and then that will create me an automation that is now available for us, and it will send it every single Monday automatically. So yeah, the other thing, I just see that this one is created in here, and I just wanted to share some of the cool stuff here. So when you've got all of this markup on here for all the comments, they're also linked automatically. So if I look at this comment one and I click on it, it takes me to my comment one here as well. So all of this automatic connection between things, not having to think about it, not having to actually spend time on it, that's the key to this automation.
We had some questions. I see that in the chat. So I think you answered some of them already. So being able to not only create a document and filter the document to certain sections, but also being able to report the activity as well, what happened with those document sections and comments. So all those are covered in this one and can also be automated. So on a frequency, it can automatically be created.
Yep. So let's keep moving. Let's move on to even more structured data in the scoping sections. We're looking at structured data when it comes to documents and using a database-driven document. But when we get to the tasks and start to assign tasks in a project, we really need to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. And that's where the Building Smart Data Dictionary comes in. And we automate the integration with all of the dictionaries, the many dictionaries of the standard terms that are being used across the world, different classification structures, and a whole bunch of really powerful property databases that are available. They're all available inside of the Building Smart Data Dictionary. And the reason for this, let's go to the standard, to go to the project dashboard and then go to the project settings. The reason for this is so that we tell people on the project what the classification hierarchy is that we're using, for example. So inside of here, we have access to all of these different standards and classification structures, and that is all built and optimized by the teams that are creating these, you hope. And if we look for example, so if OmniClass is one of those, or Uniclass, or a whole bunch of other, let's choose, oh, what am I looking for here? That's the, classifications.
So the beauty of this is actually that this is a growing database managed or hosted by the Building Smart service, the Building Smart Data Dictionary. But all these dictionaries are being developed by different organizations and groups of experts, and also being kept updated. So you can really rely on this source of information.
Yep. And so now I've hooked into that. If I start typing here, if I type anything, it's going to search the dictionary that I have connected to, and that then basically means that I don't write something incorrectly. So now I'm looking at all wall systems, everything that has got wall system in, and I can pick something. It will not only pick that, it'll also have a link directly to the data dictionary, and it will add the classifications as well. So all of this, as you're creating it, can be really quickly created and automated in your definition of a scope. We've talked about this, the definition of scopes, a lot, and we've also, in the last webinar, we've shown you exactly how to get access to this new checklist as well. The checklist for all of the different things that you have to do for managing your compliance to ISO 19650. That's available in the library. So we've automated the checklist as well. It's available as a single checklist, and all of the things that you need to do, from assessment and need to closing out a project, all of these different activities, along with all of the different tasks in each checklist, is available to you. And you can simply just say, I want to drag and drop from my library, some parts of it or all of it, and then you get exactly what you see on the screen, along with all of these things that you need to do, for example, as you appoint information managers, and what clauses are these for the ISO 19650 series, and what are the things that I need to really be focused on. You can start assigning them to team members and making sure that they are being carried out.
So this is something that we talked about during the last webinar, and a little bit of advertisement to our training site. So if you go to planoly.com/training, this is one of the training courses available, helping teams becoming audit ready for ISO 19650, and that's where you can also learn about this checklist that Clive was just showing you. But we have other trainings as well. So, for example, if you are interested in individual trainings for ISO 19650 or BIM management trainings, you will find free resources there. So, again, a little bit of advertisement, and I encourage you to visit that site.
Yep, and in those trainings, we talk about how you can define everything from your master information delivery planning for each of your teams and what their requirements are, right the way through to defining your requirements from a modeling perspective for assets and handover, and understanding what it is that we are looking for from a properties perspective. All of that is inside of that training. So we've got a really detailed training for every single one of these steps in here. So we talked there just about how we can link into the Building Smart Data Dictionary and start to use that to create our content. It really means that everyone uses the same terms and terminology, and everything is standardized across all of the teams that are using your project. We looked there at a scope that had been created in our project, but we can load that from all of the previous projects that we worked on as well. And it means that you don't have to recreate this every single time. It's the same principle that we have in the docs module. So in the scope, we have a library of requirements, and we can go to any one of the projects that we've used before, or all of the different templates that are available across all of the different languages. And we can just simply pick certain things, whether they are an activity or whether they are a building element or a system, for example. And each one of these items is something that can then be dragged and dropped into our project. And as we drag and drop that into our project, we are basically creating ourselves a row, a line item for that thing in our database. So once we've created that, it builds and it understands you've done this before. You don't want to have to keep on recreating the wheel every single time. So we are building a new project set of requirements from a previously defined set of requirements every single time. I think we're on number 9, but we are we're running a bit behind.
We have to speed up a little bit.
Maybe we should split this into two sessions. Maybe we should automate the webinar as well. Stop us talking about other things at the same time. So the next one, number 10, is automating the IDS creation. What is an IDS? Akash, what's an IDS?
IDS is a standard from Building Smart, and it is communicating what is needed at a certain use case for downstream processes. So we are requesting information, and we are requesting information because we want to carry out something like quantification or 2D layout or coordination, whatever it might be, and we need certain information for that. IDS helps us communicating these requirements to the entire internal, external teams, and as it is defined, it has to help us communicating this need in a human readable format. But not only that, once you agreed as experts and humans around the table, it also is creating a machine readable format, which is an XML format, and readable by applications which are ready for that. So we had beautiful case studies and webinars with Solibri, with Archicad, and different other vendors about grabbing this set of requirements and using it for model validation or for model authoring, model creation, preparing all the parameters that you need for certain use cases.
Yep, exactly. So once you've created the human readable version, we can then update we can export the requirements as a machine readable version. So once we've got this, let's, well, I suppose we can do anything, but I'm going to move the model responsibility matrix to the top up here. And I'm going to, actually, we can just report out the asset information model requirements. So once we have this in a human readable form, so I've got interior walls and I've got these requirements, and some of them, so for example, the fire rating has to be one of these values. So E 30, 60, 90, 120. And if that's a requirement for this milestone, and I need to communicate that with somebody else, I can simply export an IDS specification and share that with them so that they can understand exactly what their requirements are. We also will have some really cool webinars. I think maybe the next one where we'll show the use of this scope in, for example, Revit. So exporting this and then importing it and using that to apply the properties and also the allowable values inside of Revit directly using an add-on. So look out for that next one. If we want to create the IDS specification, we can choose the milestone that we want to export. We could even filter it for a specific team. A bunch of other things in here. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but then it creates us an information delivery specification as quickly as that. And we'll start to list, for example, here, this was a requirement of this was the value. This is the set of allowable values that was on something. You can get the idea, but this, there's the 30, 60, 90. Where was it? Here. I just saw it.
I saw it for a second.
Yeah. I was like,
it is there.
It is there. Here we go. There. So these are the allowable values for the fire rating, for example. And then that file, you can simply say, I want to make this a public URL. Oh, if I was on a paid account. Otherwise, you can download it and send it to somebody. But you can make it as a public URL, or you can invite people to have access to this. So give it specifically access. You can even, I think this is something we'll cover in a bit, but you can even get an electronic signature on this specifically, not just on a BIM execution plan as a PDF, but we can also use electronic signature on any type of document, whether it's an IDS file or a Revit file. All of those are created equally, and we can get electronic signature on them. So that's how to create an IDS. Let's stream through these, and maybe we can clean these up and put them in a second webinar to go through in more detail. The progress reporting, we saw how we can create reports that were from just a document, but you can also create reports from here, from the scope. And each one of these cells has a status. So, and they're fully customizable, whatever you want. But maybe we just want to report the approved parts. So these are the approved ones in the asset information model milestone that are assigned to the contractor, for example. So you can see some of them are in different folders. And in order to do that, we would say export the file. We create a PDF from this. And I would like to create something maybe with this, maybe just the details. So the details report, so it looks in the real detail. And then I just want to have just the contractor's tasks and also only those that are approved. And now it will create me a detailed report with just that specifically. And then, but let me come back to that. So you kind of saw how that is working, but that can then also be distributed as well. So you could say, only send me every single Monday the ones that are in the status of needs fixing, for example. AI-driven model checking rules. We talked about AI in the just generation or the checking of a lot of text earlier, but you can use AI to do some really cool things. And one of those things would be how to check certain rules and properties in a model. There are some very easy, simple, I would say, checks. We saw the fire rating must be one of these values. And in order to do that, we have fire rating in here, and this is just one of these values. So we've defined a rule that just says value. This is actually, these are all out of the box. So all of these rules come out of the box. But I can just simply type in the values, and I know that value is one of these. That's what it's going to be checking for when we are evaluating the model. But what if we wanted to create a really complex rule or something that's not it as one of these originally or one of the default rules? Well, we've got AI to do that. So if we create a new requirement and I want to, maybe it is warranty, like I can show you this one as well. So PSET warranty, and it's going to be point of contact for the warranty. And actually, I want it to be the email address. So now I can say, because we don't have email, I want to use AI to do this. And this needs to be an email address format. I can define whatever I like in here, and it will use AI to define the format of that for checking. And so what this is now saying is that I don't have to learn regular expressions, regex. This is doing it for us. And now by just saying I want an email address, it's going to say this is how I'm going to evaluate the result. And when I save that, it also describes it. And now if I wanted to, I could say, let's save that one. And I want not him, I want PSET warranty point of contact. Maybe it makes more sense for some of the mechanical equipment that I want here. I would like to add this to this guy. I can assign it. Now I've got point of contact, PSET warranty, defined as a rule. It's an AI rule, and it's for this specifically at this milestone by this team. And I even have links out to the specifics of our because we've linked this from the Building Smart Data Dictionary. I can even click on this and it will go to the Building Smart Data Dictionary and show us this is what we mean by this point of contact. And these are, allowable classes and values and things like that that might be inside of the Building Smart Data Dictionary as well. Okay.
If I try to add something to it and maybe just rephrase everything what we've seen.
Yeah, I think I covered quite a lot there in this part. Yeah.
Let me try to do it in 45 seconds or something. So what we are really doing here is creating the structured set of requirements, also aligned with the level of information need concept, for example. So we have on the horizontal, we have the different use cases. On the vertical, we have the requirements, elements, maybe even drawings or specifications put into any kind of folder structure or classification structure. And in this matrix, we have the information containers. Those information containers really talk about responsibilities, who is responsible at a certain point in time to creating that piece of information, going down into even information requirements. So when we are talking about modeling components, we want to have certain properties added to each and every element. And then this is the right place to start requesting those pieces of information requirements. In some cases, these information requirements are very simple and you just want to have it added. So in those cases, you just say that I need this parameter added. If it doesn't have any value, I don't care about it. But in other cases, it can be more specific. And that's when you can start thinking about whether this information requirement has to be in a certain group, maybe in a PSET, if you are in the open BIM world. What is the description for that? And what kind of value are you expecting? Is it numbers? Are these dates? Is it a certain text? Or if it doesn't come out of the box, that's when you can use regular expressions, which language you don't have to talk. I don't talk regular expressions, but that's when AI is going to help you to really define that string of values that you are expecting. And this user interface, as in other places of Planoly as well, is very, very flexible. So you see that it is suggesting Open BIM standards is suggesting IFC and different kind of classifications if you want to, but you don't have to follow any of these. You can create a very high level responsibility matrix as well without defining any kind of information requirements if that's what you want. It can stay on geometrical descriptions only. So lots of potentials here. Perfect. It was more than 45 seconds, but I tried my best.
Perfect. So that we looked at AI-driven model checking rules to define email address as the requirement that would be checked. But there's lots that we can talk about. I think we're going to have a specific webinar just on information requirements and information, basically checking that those requirements have been added and they are streamlined in that workflow rather than being a cumbersome and difficult thing for teams to use and handle. So automated task. So once we've got a set of activities in our project, we need to also understand not just who's doing them, but what sequence they're occurring in and whether there's deadlines that we need to comply with, if there are specific maybe milestones we need to meet, if there are dependencies that are required. And that's where we get into the timeline side of things and the automation in the timeline. So here, if we were to look at this and say, let's switch from the grid view into the timeline view, and each one of these bars on the timeline, see some of them have been assigned to teams based on the color and team member potentially with the photograph. And they start off, they're all 3 days long, just so that you can see a bar on the bar chart. But what we're able to do now is start to say, well, this is actually going to be 5 days long. And it's going to start here. And I know that once we've finished this task, I'm going to then start this task. And once I've finished this task, I'm going to start this task, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so we start to understand all of these dependencies, and we see the weekends, for example. We can see this in a more compact view as well. If you're viewing and you're used to seeing it like a Gantt chart, we can see it in a more compact view. But you start to understand the dependencies between these tasks. We start to understand the durations between the durations of these tasks, and we can start to see how long certain aspects of the project are going to take. This obviously is usually it's a completely separate person. It's a completely separate application. It's a completely separate list of tasks. We saw that as being redundant, and actually, so my time in project management back in the construction days, I created many of these programs, plans, timelines, schedules, however you want to term them. And it was always starting from scratch, and it was never in sync with the original project scope. Well, here it is, and every one of these bars is actually, if we double click on it, exactly the same task that we saw before. And we can not only make sure that it's in sync, but also that everyone that's assigned a task, they can actually come in and do their timelines and say, in order for my task here, I actually need this person's work before I can get started. So they can put in a dependency, and if this guy is not going to start until here, then this will automatically update all of my other tasks as well. So a lot that we could cover here. There are some really cool things, like in the advanced side, we can start to put in constraints for a bunch of things. We can really go to town on what we expect and everything in the schedule. But one of the things that is pretty cool as well is that we can document that without having separate plans. You can literally just get a part of that document created, instead of having, I remember the number of times I had a spreadsheet, a Word document, and a plan, a program, a guide, a timeline, and they were all in separate documents, and I had to print them as PDFs. I had to combine them as a thing. It was always formatting terribly. I'd never have the same headers and footers on everything. So now, if I want to have a consolidated view with my own document index, for example, here, so we've got timeline. Maybe I want the BIM execution plan in here. I want the scope of requirements. I want the timeline, and I want some details of all this information. Now I've got this here, and it's all nicely formatted. It's all hyperlinked. It's all created for me with the same formatting, the same detail. And then I want to put a cover page on it. I just add a cover page. Maybe I want to adjust the headers and footers, so I can come in, I can start adjusting the headers and footers, and that will adjust across everything, or I can copy that from another project or a template that I've worked on. All of that is just so much easier, and it creates me a document without me having to worry about it. So that was automation on the scheduling side of things, project scope. Filter PDF generation, I think we've talked about some of this, but the concept is, instead of giving, I remember in my construction days, I was given like big wads of paper. It was like, here you go, this is this project's information. And I was like, wow, and I spend so much time sorting through it. And what contractors generally do is add an amount of money for risk. And if there's lots more paper, then there's more risk money. And that just, in the end, it makes the project more expensive, and it goes on to the contractor, goes on to the client. And that never made it feel good, but it was the only way really to get through so many bids. And that whole process just, I think, stinks. So in the filtered PDF generation, what we are doing is we're actually saying, instead of giving you everything, why don't we just filter this for one team? So we're adding a team page, only the stuff that's now published and authorized for use, only your team's work. And when we create it, let's only give it to your team and give you access to it, and also ask you for an approval at the same time. So this whole process, and I think I'm touching on a couple of others, but it filters out those requirements so you don't get all of the noise of everyone else's requirements, and you can spend time and get to a better price and feel more confident about what's included in your scope, without the worry of missing something, because it's a lot more targeted, that the documents that are created are a lot more targeted. I just touched on it there, electronic signature. Again, it's time consuming. A lot of people, let me just go back to file manager on one of these that we've already got. So a lot of people end up downloading a PDF from somewhere and then going somewhere else for an approval workflow. Inside of Planoly, any file in File Manager can just have a signature added. So I'm just going to request a signature from myself and Akosh. There'll be an email sent. When I get the email, it'll click on the email, it'll come to this page with the document. I can see it. I can then either type in my name, or I can use my signature and electronically sign this document. And now it's all contained in that same blob. I don't have to even think about it. Akosh has approved it as well, I can see. And everything is then updated, and this document is, so if you had file folders that were created for only approved documents, so let's start doing this one. This is an approved document, and I just want it in here. I'm jumping around, but this is stuff that I know that we're going to cover. Approved. And if this is all my files, but I want this folder, this filter, to automatically collect any documents that have been approved. So I don't have to think about my folder structure. If you imagine a big folder structure down this left-hand side, automatically collecting files based on different metadata, different properties, that's automating the process. And if let's have a look. So you can see the history of this, and I knew Akosh was going to sign with an X.
Yeah, that's my signature. Now everyone knows.
So automating that electronic signature workflow, automating model requirement linking. So I realize that we've got 2 minutes left. So there are a few things that will roll into another webinar, but let's talk about them very quickly. The models that come in have lots of different properties, lots of different values. You can use those to automate the connection and the checking to all of those information requirements that we've just defined, and automatically verify whether the properties and the values meet the requirements that you've set. So we'll talk about that. The autonomous team model checking is basically, instead of you as a project manager going through a model, finding out the problems, creating a report, sending the report, getting them to find the problems that you've just reported on, fix those problems, maybe all of the problems, maybe some of the problems, create another version of the model, send it back to you, or you synchronize that model, and then for you to get the model back, and then that whole process is completely eliminated, because we actually allow the team that submits the model to do their own check, and then they'll fix it because they can see what's wrong with it, because it's all machine readable and very easy for teams to visualize and see where the problems are. And then we'll come back only when the model is submitted and it's fully, it actually complies with your requirements. So we'll go through that. Automated document versioning. So we talked about, man, there's so much good stuff here. So we saw in File Manager the versioning automatically here when a new version of the same document is created. Well, actually what happens is, if I uploaded a bunch of documents in here, so if I had, I'm just going to drag and drop a couple of documents in here. So I'm going to just drop some documents in here. these documents, as they upload in here, all get automated in their versioning. And then let's say I then drag and drop another few documents. What did I put? Contract? Yeah. And then I'm going to drag and drop a few documents. Now it's spotting which ones are new documents and which ones have new versions, and it will automatically upload and auto version them and put them together. So here we can see we've got, for example, construction contract. It's a Word document. We've got 2 different versions of it. And you can track them. It tracks them automatically, or it will automatically update them. So automatically, and also automatically file them based on the metadata. The file naming convention is automated based on the metadata as well. So sometimes we follow file naming conventions inside of different standards for different standards. Well, let's take an example in the settings for this one. If I wanted to create a file naming standard for my project, maybe it would start with the project ID, and then I would have the team abbreviation that created it. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do this, but obviously following different file naming standards, and the version and etc. And then there's a separator. So this is kind of what it would look like. I don't think we've defined a project name yet. I don't know whether it's going to be good enough, but anyway, it'll give us something. So it's empty at the moment. So let me go to our project dashboard, and if I put in a project ID, anyway, you can see how this is updated. And now when I download the files will be all named in the way that we are supposed to be naming it based on the metadata. There's a whole bunch more that we can talk about in that. Automated file organization, we did dig into that, where basically when a file got approved, it would go into a new folder. We can show you that. I think that's worth a webinar all on its own. Automating the file filtering and the assignment, and being able to, instead of have everyone have to put things in folders and keep moving things around in folders, it automates that part of it as well. And then the last one, the streamlined ISO 19650 compliance. We're 3 minutes over, apologize. This is something that we talked about in the last webinar, about using a checklist to follow the ISO 19650 workflow. We're blown away. There's been 400 companies in the first month that have gone through this program. Overall, there have been, I think there's 4,000 students on the programs. They are really saying some nice things about them, and we're super proud of it, but you'll see more and more of that. You can get access to these courses. Maybe that's worth a link in the chat, that maybe Akos, you can throw that in the chat.
I cannot, but plenary.com/training. So.
Okay. And then inside of the app, we also have this checklist that we talked about in the last webinar, that really gives you the step-by-step set of requirements that you need to follow, or that are advisable to follow. And you can filter for your type of company, what you're doing, and what ones are relevant for you. And then as a bonus, we've got 7 resources to help you implement. They range from this workflow, which is a simplified view of the ISO 19650 workflow, all of the different stages, the main setting of requirements, the response to a tender, appointing somebody, defining requirements that become contractual, following up with actually mobilizing and starting to produce information, verifying it, and then learning from it. This is the ISO 19650 process map. We'll send you a link in a follow-up email as well. If you need to explain ISO 19650, there's a 5-minute video. We have 21 videos in this YouTube playlist that we will follow up with. If you really get stuck, or some of your teams don't quite understand the concept of level of information need and explaining that, there's a video there. Understanding the concepts of building smart data dictionary. So this dictionary that we connected to, we showed you how you search and see values that come from it, and exporting the information delivery specification in IDS format. The training, so starting to really understand how to implement ISO 19650. We've got some really powerful resources and a certified training program that ranges actually from the basics of BIM management right the way through to expert level on ISO 19650 implementation. And then the compliance steps is actually something that we support you if you're interested. We help companies just go through this workflow and make sure that it's done in as quick a time frame as possible. 60 days is the target, and we keep you on track to go through that checklist and to implement everything, even book your audit and get you certified through that process. We support you through non-conformances as well, so make sure you are actually getting certification as well. Right, there you go. Long agenda. We've run over a bit. There are our details. We really appreciate your comments and questions and thoughts. We're here to also to learn and grow with you as you find out what's possible, what's not possible. We like to just improve from a technology perspective to make your lives easier. So that's what we get up out of bed every single day for, is to see what we can do from a technology perspective to make it easier to do your work. So yeah, communicate, let us know, so we can really make BIM management, make information management a lot less stressful, and actually we can have some fun doing it. That's our goal. Do we have questions, Akos? Where do we sit? Do we have time? I know we've run over. Thanks for sticking out with us. I know that, I see there are still quite a few people here.
Yeah, I saw some questions in the chat, but I believe those have been answered during the presentation. These were about, for example, printing, what to do with the comments and activities on the document sections, and file naming and version controlling. So I believe those have been answered. I see that we were suggested to use the Q&A panel, maybe, but I don't think I see that. Is that possible? I cannot use the chat either, so maybe something that I don't have access to. I see the meeting chat, but not a Q&A. Do you have anything like that?
I don't see any other panel on my screen.
Maybe we are not supposed to see anything, guys. So maybe, these are copied here now. But can Planoly integrate with our existing Microsoft Teams and SharePoint setup? We manage projects within separate Teams channels. We will need to duplicate these projects in Planoly, or is there a way to link them seamlessly with our workflow to add more value, especially for document management and templates?
That's a good one. And I think we do integrate to a certain extent, but there's a lot more coming. So we actually, inside of File Manager, we have an ongoing project that will synchronize based on a folder to multiple different CDEs, different platforms and file management tools. So for example, SharePoint. So you're not having to put files in SharePoint and put files in Planoly, like we do already with Autodesk Construction Cloud. All of the models that are synced, all of the models that are uploaded to ACC are automatically synced, so you don't have to have models in multiple places. Look out for that coming in SharePoint as well. I'm not going to promise a timeline, but hit us up if that's something that's important to you. Then we accelerate different parts of our roadmap based on customer feedback, based on what you need. That's exactly how it works. That's the best thing, is when somebody says this is really important to us, and we're like, okay, let's jump on that next, or let's put that in the priority queue.
Right. If looking to get a company ISO 9650 compliant and ready as the appointed party, where would you recommend we start using your system? And so I would just recommend to jump on our training site, so planoly.com/training. You can start with the basic. You will see the timer as well. These are on-demand videos that you can watch, and there are some questionnaires that you can go through and quizzes. You can start with the basic, jump to the expert level, which is ISO 19650, and then roll into the team. What is the name of the training? 60-day readiness program. that is a good starting point. You can always use the chat panel that you will find in the application. You can create a free account as well. And we've shown a couple of resources that we are going to send out about ISO 19650 in general, so you will have access to those as well. But if I try to rephrase again, please go to our training site, and I would recommend to start there, and you can follow the training in a free account that you create on planner.com.
Yep, the training is free, and access to Planoly is on a free account. So, and also hit up any of our team, as Akko said, on the chat, and we will also support you, answer your questions. As I said before, we want to learn from what you're doing. So that's how the application gets better, how the community builds, and that's what's great about being involved with the BIM Heroes community, because there's a bunch of really strong information managers that really give us some great ideas to develop better and better platform software, things that will help you. So it's kind of like this cycle of improvement.
I think we reached. No, probably we ran a little bit over time. Is that possible? So I just saw a couple of messages that other meetings are starting and someone has to leave.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We thank you for sticking around. Apologies for going over. I think that there's a bunch of the second half that sort of turn into almost webinars on their own. So actually that would be a really useful thing if you've got ideas for where you would love us for focusing our time in these sessions. We are going to be doing one every single month. What would you be interested in seeing? We can put that into the queue and make sure that we focus on something that's important to you. Or send us an email. You've got our email addresses right here. Cool. Yep. Thanks, everyone. We really appreciate everything that the BIM Heroes. Hey, Ken, is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I'm here.
Cool. Thanks so much for hosting us, and thanks for sticking around a little bit later than we had planned.
Okay.
And see you in a month, right?
Yeah.
Be great.
Cool. Thanks take care. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.